Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan and today I'm going to be ranking the 10 most hyped players that failed in the NHL. Now over the past 10 years we've seen a lot of prospects come into the NHL with superstar hype and superstar talent. Some have gone up to that level and become absolutely amazing players, and others just did not work out in the NHL whatsoever, practically being labeled as failures and busts. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 10 most hyped players over the past 10 years in recent memory that came into the NHL and just did not work out. So, who makes my top 10 in today's video, and who do I see as the biggest failures over the past 10 years when it comes to prospects and the most hyped players? Watch till the end for all my picks and rankings, and of course hit that subscribe button if you're new. Now we're going to start out today's list with no particular order. Coming in at number 1, the first hyped up player that failed in the NHL. I have the first overall pick and the elephant in the room, Nail Yakupov. Now back in 2012, the hype for him was absolutely monstrous, and for good reason. The year before his draft year in 2011, he got 101 points in 65 OHL games. That was his first OHL season. Not bad whatsoever, and got 13 points in the U18 World Juniors. Then the next season got 69 points in 42 games and got 9 points in the U20 World Juniors. Absolutely great production over the last couple of years. Then he goes to Edmonton, and in his first season was actually pretty decent. 48 games played and 31 points. Looking pretty good. Obviously not a superstar, but at that point was still a pretty good NHL player. And then it pretty much all went down from there. He played pretty much 3 more years at Edmonton, then got traded to St. Louis, signed to Colorado, and that was pretty much it for his NHL career. He's been in the KHL for the past couple of seasons and is not looking back. But now going on to the second most hyped player that failed at the NHL level. Now this player wasn't exactly a failure. He still is pretty okay, but is certainly not near what his expectations were. At number 2, the Calgary Flames and Sam Bennett. Now Sam Bennett's career is one of the most interesting things of all time, because the year before his draft year, he got 40 points in 60 OHL games at Kingston, and in the U18 World Juniors got 7 points in 7 games. But the 2014 season was where he really did explode, got 91 points in 57 games. Then the next year would play 11 OHL games, get 24 points, and play 11 playoff games for Calgary in the NHL level, getting 4 points too. Then the next season he would get 36 points in 77 games in 2016, looking very good and looking very solid. Although there were some things to work on, he did make some excellent progress. And then the next year he got 26 points, the next year he got 26 points again, then 27 points, and then this year 12 points in 52 games. And it was obvious that the things that he needed to work on just were not getting done. The skating was still an issue for him, the overall play was still an issue, and although he was still getting good points percentage before that, a lot more expectations were put on the 4th overall pick, and those expectations were not lived up to. But now going on to the third most hyped player that has failed at the NHL level. Coming in number 3, I have Erik Gudbranson. Now back in 2010, a lot of NHL scouts loved Erik Gudbranson. Now in his season, in his draft year, he was able to get 23 points in 41 OHL games. Offensively, the production wasn't too amazing, but a lot of scouts around the league liked him a lot due to his physical presence, due to good defensive play, at least back then, and due to an offensive tool set that was developing, but back then still had some upside. And also one of the biggest reasons that Florida drafted him was because of the leadership that he brought for Kingston throughout his OHL days that was fairly highly touted. He was looked at as a pretty good package defenseman that could bring everything you want in the locker room and on the ice. That did not happen. The offense did not pan out, and I'd argue the defense did not pan out whatsoever. But for Erik Gudbranson, he still turned out to an NHL career, but this whole complete package defenseman is not exactly what Gudbranson is right now. But now going on to the 4th most hyped player that failed at the NHL level, and I don't even put this lightly, failed in the NHL level, I have Mikhail Grigorenko. Now, the year before he was drafted, he played in the MHL, got 35 points in 43 games in Russia, but in the U18 World Juniors got 18 points in 7 games played. That is one of the best U18 tournaments we've ever seen from a forward, and he just smashes it. Then the next season in the QMJHL gets 85 points in 59 games, and then plays for Russia in the U20 World Juniors, gets 5 points in 6 games, looks very solid, and the pedigree for Grigorenko was totally there as an offensive dominant player. And for Buffalo to get him 12th overall outside the top 10 actually looked pretty great. But since then, it just did not work out. He had another good QMJHL year, got 33 games played and 54 points in 2013, played 25 NHL games, getting 5 points, and then after that played 18 games with Buffalo, 25 games in 2015. He ended up playing for the Avalanche for a couple of seasons. His last year was in 2017, getting 23 points, and since then has been a KHL dominator. But even though Grigorenko turned into a KHL star, the NHL side of things just was not there whatsoever. And you'll see that with the next pick. Coming at number 5, my 5th most hyped up player that absolutely failed in the NHL, I have Griffin Reinhart. Now, Griffin Reinhart was, again, you guessed it, a 2012 draft pick, 4th overall by the New York Islanders, and it just did not work out from day one. Over the WHL in the next couple of years, he didn't really make all too much progress, then would play a lot of AHL games, got traded to Edmonton. They tried to do something with him, but they're the Edmonton Oilers, and unless your name is Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, it's not going to happen. So over those next few years, nothing did happen. This year, by the way, he played in the KHL, the Cleveland Red Star, 33 games and 2 assists for 2 points. So it's not exactly going too well for Reinhart right now. But now going on to my 6th most hyped player that failed at the NHL level. And coming in number 6, I have Evgeny Svechnikov. Now for specifics, Svechnikov in his draft year in 2015 got 78 points in 55 QMJHL games. Then the next year would get 79 in 50 games. But there wasn't too much hype around him then. But the next season, 2017, is where he just exploded. In 74 games, got 51 points, and at that point, he was like a 20, 21-year-old and looked absolutely amazing. And then the next year would play 57 games, getting 23 points, not looking as good, but the next season was hoped at as one that he might transition to the NHL full time. And then he did not play a game at all in 2019. This year, still got on track, 25 points in 51 games. But back in that 2017 season, he was looked at as a guy that after that season could go up to the NHL level and be very, very solid. A top 6 winger at least for Detroit. And again, that potential, especially offensively that he had, due to injuries especially, has just not been able to come up. And now going on to the 7th most hyped player that failed at the NHL level. Coming at number 7, I have Derrick Pouliot. Now, Derrick Pouliot is definitely one of the more fascinating prospects of the last few years. Being drafted 8th overall in the 2012 NHL draft, once again, you guessed it, Pouliot was looked at as a guy who could be a superstar offensive D-man. Although back then in 2012, the defensive game was a worry, and it continued to be, the offense was looked at as major upside and could become a guy who scores 60 points at the NHL level potentially. And I will admit that the offensive skill set for Pouliot was definitely there. I mean, for instance, in his first AHL campaign in 2015, he got 24 points in 31 games. Looked very solid, and looked like a guy that could be a top 4 guy for Pittsburgh eventually, but that just did not work out. Whether it was the skating or the defensive play, Pouliot was just not able to transition to the NHL level. And now going on to the 7th player most hyped that failed at the NHL level. This is a guy that didn't see as a superstar back in 2013, and nobody really did, but a lot of people expected him to be a top 6, maybe even first line winger for the Vancouver Canucks, that being Hunter Shinkaruk. Now Shinkaruk back in his draft year and his junior days actually looked pretty good. The year before his draft year got 91 points in 66 games, in his draft year would get 86 in 64, and then in 2015 in his first AHL campaign would get 31 points in 74 games. Not bad whatsoever. Then the next season in Utica would get 39 points in 45 games, looking very, very good. And then he got traded to the Calgary Flames for Marcus Granlund, a trade that did not work out for anybody involved. And after that, he was just not the same. In the Stockton Heat system, it was not there, and he did not play all that well for Calgary. Over the last few seasons, he would get a few AHL points here and there, but this year is playing for the Kunlun Red Star in the KHL, getting 9 points in 19 games. So, as a KHL player, not bad at all. Now going on to the 9th most hyped player that failed at the NHL level, I have Curtis Lazar. Now Lazar was selected 17th overall by the Ottawa Senators back in 2013, and over the next few seasons would look very, very good, looking like a potential top 6 guy for Ottawa and one of their best future prospects. But over his career, it would just become apparent that he was not the right fit. Now, back in 2013 when he was drafted, he was pretty solid, 61 points in 72 WHL games. Then the next season would improve quite a bit, getting 76 points in 58 games. Not bad at all, being the assistant captain for Edmonton. Then you get into his NHL days the year after, got 15 points in 67 games. Not amazing, but still looked pretty good. Then the next season would get 20 points in 76 games. Some progress, but there was still more to be desired. Then the next season, in the 2017 season, it would just all come crashing down. He would play 33 games for Ottawa and get 1 assist. Tell that to Curtis Lazar, because that is not all that great. Over the next couple of seasons, he would play quite a bit of NHL games with Calgary, not do too much. Now he's with the Buffalo Sabres, having a pretty good AHL campaign, but on the NHL club has 10 points in 38 games. Again, not terrible, but as a guy who had a lot of hype after his junior days, and especially his first season with Ottawa, the production is not all that great. And again, the expectations were high, and the actual play was not. And now getting into the 10th hyped player that ended up busting and failing at the NHL level, I have David Rundblad. Now Rundblad is fascinating from top to bottom. The Swedish defenseman was drafted 17th overall back in 2009 by St. Louis and had really great potential at the NHL level. He was a guy that was looked at as one of the best defensive prospects in 2013 through 2015. Got traded to the Chicago Blackhawks, but even then, looked very good. Now back in 2009, Rundblad was a very solid prospect. In his draft year, got 10 points in 45 games as a D-man. The next year would get 13 points in 47 games, and then the next year he would absolutely explode, getting 50 points in 55 SHL games, 10 points in 18 playoff games. He would end up being with Ottawa for his first few games, 24 games played and 4 points, would end up playing for Phoenix, then for the Chicago Blackhawks, and in 2015 would end up getting 14 points in 49 games. But again, that potential and that talent he had back in 2011 when he got 50 SHL points, that doesn't happen all too commonly. And for a defenseman to do that well, the expectations were so high. And for Chicago, he actually did pretty decent in the Cup year for them in 2015, but after that, or even before, it just did not work all too well. He was switching through so many teams and is now back in Sweden, back playing in the SHL, where he does call home. But that'll be it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching, all y'all. Of course, if you're just stopping by, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Of course, comment down below your thoughts on my picks, what do you agree and disagree with, and also let me know what you think about the most hyped players of the past 10 years, which do you think are the most hyped, and any guys that you guys want to mention as well. Of course, share this video with your friends. Get the word out there, boys, about the players that failed, which is kind of mean, but at the same time, make sure you do so. And also click on this card right here to watch all of my 2020 NHL draft content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.